Innovation Unplugged from the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center takes you inside Alabama's workforce development. Join us for enlightening conversations with community leaders and industry experts showcasing experiences, addressing key issues, and celebrating successes in the workforce initiatives across the state. Welcome to Innovation Unplugged. I'm Houston Blackwood, your host for this show. On my right is Matt Heaton, our Career Readiness Manager. And on my left is Jason Davidson, Superintendent for Jackson County Schools. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for lunch, and thanks for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. We are recording in the Innovation Unplugged studio at the Innovation Center in Decatur, Alabama. And we are excited. We did have lunch over at the Brick, a local legend here in Decatur, Alabama. That blue plate special is always really good. Good deal. And then behind the scenes today, we've got Mr. Tony Wilson. He's our sound engineer and a camera extraordinaire. First time on the job today. Doing good so far? So far. Happy to have it, but good deal. Well, time is limited. We got a lot to talk about with you. And so I'm excited. Thanks for making the trip over. Just so the audience knows a little bit about who they're talking to today. Who is Jason Davidson and where did he come from?
Well, I'm from Bryan, Alabama, which is the last town in the northeast corner of the state. So overlooking Tennessee and Georgia. Grew up there, went to Bryant Junior High School, and then I went on to North Sand Mountain. So I'm a product of our school system, public K-12 there in northeast Alabama, which it's not that far away from Huntsville. We were talking at lunch. I think I grew up with the idea that Huntsville was farther away than it really is, and spent a lot of time growing up in Trenton, Georgia, Chattanooga, Tennessee area. But as an adult living in Jackson County, Scottsboro, Huntsville, it's become part of my adulthood life. Taught 10 years in the classroom at North Jackson. Had to think for a second. Spent 10 years as an eco-demo teacher, which is economics democracy, because that was going to be my.
I was like, well, what do we do?
I wasn't a traditional education major. So community college product, went to Northeast Community College, is one of those, like we talked about earlier, our generation, it was like grade 13 and 14 when you leave high school and you go on to community college. And really was just on a general pathway there for a while, and got out, got a degree in economics from Jacksonville State University. It was around the time of 2000. And so the internet was really forming. And so I had a double major in economics and e-commerce, which was online commerce. It led me to a job in the medical auditing field. And so got married. She was a nurse. We went to school together, and you just didn't get that job fulfillment going to work every day. And I'm not speaking for her, but for myself, it just wasn't the job fulfillment. So went back to got a fifth-year master's in education, and it paralleled real easily because my undergrad was in economics. So I was able to teach social studies at the K-12 level. Did that 10 years, and then had to go back and add a second master's to be able to be in administration. Became an assistant principal, the traditional way, and spent 5 years in administration, and then went into something that changed my life forever, and that was career tech. So, and in the height of the COVID, when everybody was going home, I made a transition to being the career tech director at the Ernest Pruitt Center of Technology, which was EBCOT. EBCOT was a traditional, built in probably the 60s, going on 50 years of a facility there on Highway 72 in Hollywood, Alabama, who had trained generations of students that are, not only in the field that they got training in, but some of them probably went on to do many things. But our county at the time, we're an aging building facility campus. We've got about 17 campuses, and so the decision was made. Do you invest? And it wasn't my decision. It was Kevin Dukes, who was the superintendent of the time.
Okay.
Kevin Dukes was. I followed him as being the principal. He was the principal at Skyline, and I was his assistant. Followed him to be the principal there, and then later became the career tech director. And I'll tell you how I became superintendent later. But as you can sort of see, there wasn't a lot of plan in my life. I went to school just as my dad had always sort of taught me, and my mom, education was important. They laid the foundation that education can change your life. And so I'm an only child, but I was first graduate in my household. And so just having an education was important. What I didn't have, and what I think my generation lacked, was a lot of other skills that I'm not an electrician. I'm not a carpenter. So I just really had that focus of doing really well in all those academic classes. And so going back to when I said we got to the point where we had to spend money on some facility updates. And our board at the time was wise enough to know that if you're going to spend a lot of money to revamp a roof or put up some new buildings, why don't we look at a larger campus? And if you've ever been up Highway 72 in Hollywood, Alabama, you've seen the big smokestack towers that represents the nuclear power plant that never was in Bellefonte. And the industrial park there sat a building that was 66,000 square feet for probably a decade in the Jackson County Industrial Park. And the board and Mr. Dukes and some of the supervisors at the time had the vision forward enough to realize that was an unutilized piece of property in Jackson County. And what better way to utilize it than to put students in that building for career tech? We've not sold the Ernest Pruitt Center of Technology. It's still there. So we actually hold 30 acres of land on both sides of Highway 72, east and west there in Hollywood. But this building, we purchased it. So the building is sitting on 15 acres. There's 15 additional acres in the back of the property. And they invested the money in turning that into what became the Kevin Dukes Career and Innovation Academy. And it houses all of our career tech programs. It has a theater that seats 750 students or adults. It's got the central office. It's got middle school and elementary STEM, robotics, music, art, and drama, and it's professional development spaces. So what I call 5 no address spaces. So Houston, you don't have this room every day, but if you needed it today, you can reserve it. I can reserve it tomorrow. Spaces like the hub, the boardroom, and other workspaces that we're able to utilize for teacher development, professional development, business and industry trainings. We've got the Retirement Systems of Alabama holding a regional meetings there tomorrow. So it's a building that has become part of the county. And I don't think it's just a school building anymore. It is, in fact, probably one of the few buildings in the United States or the world that a K-12 building is in an industrial park, but it's being utilized for the entire region.
Yeah. That's a
long explanation of who I am. But that building became my life about 7 years ago, and that's what shaped my career to this point.
Well, absolutely, and that's what I want to dig into first is we've been to that building many, many times. And I actually attended a retirement seminar there back in March, and so it truly is like this hub of just what everybody's got going on in that county. Not to mention, it's also beautiful. Like it's got polished concrete floors, and every surface is just world class, and all the things going on in there, man, really crazy. So. I'm sure a lot of folks out there who listen to this have maybe built a home or at least added on to a home, or they've done some kind of construction, been a part of a development of a thing. But you were bringing together, in everything you just mentioned, you're bringing together a whole 4 different worlds into one spot. Walk us through what it was like when they first said, "Hey, we're not going to upgrade Epcot. We want to do a whole new thing."
Sure.
And they actually outlined on paper what they wanted the guts of that building to look like. Kind of walk us through that journey of deciding how to divide it up into things that would work.
Okay. So, the first day on the job as the career tech director, because students weren't there, because they had just left at spring break, my total job became the project at that point. So, my job, like I think the first day or the second day was an architect interview, and we interviewed about 5 architects at the time. And it was basically taking all the ideas that had been laid out there from experience with Epcot. You need this much space for health science lab. You really want classroom space, lab space. You need this much space for welding. So we had an idea because we had a 50-year-old established program in Epcot. So we knew which programs were going to be there. The word that I used from day one, and I think I told every architect, was adaptive. That space has to be adaptive because what we're doing today is not going to be what we're doing in 50 years. Also, we've made changes internally without having to move walls. So can you keep the space so that we can plug and play, or can you add and subtract programs, but also have flex spaces? We didn't want it to all be tied down to where you couldn't have flex space. So Ward Scott Morris, Zach Ward, and Chad Twiliger, which they've later built an office here in Huntsville, and they're working on the Skyline School project for us now. They're the architects that we chose, and we chose them because they listened to everything that we said, and we told a story. Mr. Dukes, we would go to campuses, and it's really cool to me to tell you that, like RC3, which is in River Chase, Hoover, there's an element of that building in our project. And so everywhere we visited, and I visited several places. There were months where I was just going school to school to see what spots and equipment was in places that we would want to bring back. And so Ward Scott listened to that, and they made this really cool, useful building, but aesthetically from the outside, it looks like no school. It doesn't look like a Roman architectural column school. We have Google in our system or in our county. Google at the time was not something you drove by and said, "Oh, that's Google." So we wanted people to think, "Oh, that could be a tech industry business. It could be a modern manufacturing facility." We really didn't want it to look like a school. And so I don't think that it does. I think architecture's changed a little bit now, and there's going to be probably some schools that look very similar to that. But that modern design feature was a part of the allure of you're building this facility. And part of the reason that we're doing this is to erase a stigma. The stigma of if you don't go to college, you got to go to, if you don't go to college, you're probably going to go to career tech. And if you go to career tech, it's going to be really dirty. You're going to work with your hands. It's going to be labor intensive. This is a modern building. We have things from, we, at one point in the spring, when you've got thousands of students in your building from grades pre-K through 12, you've got kids on one end of the building watching the play going on. You got the CFO in the building working on the budget. You've got the career tech offices running like a school, and at the very end, you've got welding and manufacturing. And then we've got a hospital upstairs. So the building is functional, but it's adaptive. And that was sort of the point.
I love that word adaptive. When Calhoun Community College first pitched the idea of adding a new building, upgrading their facilities, and a lot of colleges were at the time, this was right after COVID, they started designing these things, and that was the word adaptive, especially for when I was in charge of the workforce solution space, because we do all kinds of trainings. And I said, I want a big open space with a balcony view, and like a couple things that have to be locked down, but I want the rest of the space to be, I can roll tables out, dividers out, whatever. So it can be PLCs one day, it can be a lineman rodeo the next day. If we want to bring in a truck in there and do some maintenance, we can do all that. And so every space had a big roll-up door. And then there was another roll-up door that was the same size in between each. So you could run a semi all the way down through. Whatever you got to do, but the flex space is.
So RC3 had renovated a middle school. So their old gymnasium had been turned into the building construction lab.
Yeah.
So it was like chain link fenced walls that you could move them. So, we were talking before the program started about, it's probably going to be, I don't know what the number is now, the number of systems or school systems across the state that have visited Jackson County to see our facility. But I think there's going to be two models now that, as we really are putting an emphasis, and I applaud the legislative support, the community college support, and the K-12 support for career tech education. But there's two pathways to really take. You take a modern building that's built from scratch on a clean slate and build it and design it however you wish on a piece of property that you're able to acquire or that you have in your inventory. Or do you go out and look for an industry partner in an industrial park, an old facility? I know there's partnerships across the state now forming with business and industry, who is, not all schools are like us, where we were completely, we were self-funded. We didn't go out for support. We're not partnered. It's not a naming right, so to speak, partnership with someone. That was Jackson County Schools that did that through our savings and our bond issue and ESSER money at the time with COVID. But now you're seeing companies paralleling, oh, we've got this really large warehouse that we haven't utilized. Let's turn that into a facility.
Learning space. Yeah. I think, Matt and I grew up professionally in a place where there were 7 high schools, Coleman County.
7, yeah.
7. And then I worked in Morgan County schools that had 5 high schools, and they all had gyms. They all had buildings. And a lot of them, had elementary schools that were attached. And they're aging, and then like you got to upgrade those, and you think, well, we're going to spend cajillions of dollars on roofs and gyms and whatever. And man, what if we combined and had like this really gym of a place? And a lot of times the egos get involved.
Sure.
And I can say that I got to work in those places more, and I'm friends with all of them, but the community identities got involved. Not ego is a bad word, but
I understand exactly what you're talking about, because Jackson County is very similar to those counties. We've got 6 high schools, and the city of Scottsboro makes our 7th. We have a really good relationship, and have historically with the city system. It's really the closest campus of a high school, of any high school in Jackson County, to the career tech center.
Right down the road.
Historically and now. And so, we don't want to take the identity away from being a Skyline Viking or a North Sand Mountain Bison or a Scottsboro Wildcat. We're not a standalone school. We're not there are models now of schools being built for career tech and other purposes to be a standalone school. We are integrated inside the city, inside the county and the city system. Our students are everyone's students, and we've made a really big push of that. We're not competing. We're not trying to be to get your students. We have to share resources, of course, but we want to work to where we're integrated in all the schools, because I think that's part of the stigma is if you can show a kindergarten teacher the importance of a student coming through the career tech program in the 11th or 12th or 10th grade, that's why they're teaching them reading in the 3rd grade, so that they can read all the way through law school or how to read an owner's manual on a piece of equipment, just like the simulator you got out here. Those are technical skills. And so we're not trying to be separate or above anything. We just want to be part of everything. And so having students from all grade levels coming through that building, having teachers come through the building, I think that the cool thing about the Kevin Dukes building is it's not this standalone facility. It's the heartbeat now, the hub, if you will, of everything that happens inside of Jackson County Schools.
I think I love that. And from a school administrator, from a teacher perspective, I remember being at Coleman and at Good Hope High School, and the kids were going over to the Career Center, and it taking forever.
Yeah.
We weren't that far at Good Hope. We were just a couple turns. We were right there. Do your students come to Kevin Dukes like in the morning, or do they ride a bus? So they remain a Skyline Viking, but they attend classes all day at the Kevin Dukes, or how does it work?
Okay, so 2026 education's changed a lot.
Sure.
For a high school student.
Thankfully, by the way.
But you don't think about it the way that we thought of it when we were coming through the 10th through the 12th grade. We've talked about dual enrollment earlier. Students are starting to take classes as early as 10th grade for dual enrollment. So when you look at the schedule, and we had to be on the same page. So every school had to get on the same page as what are we offering for seniors in the morning and juniors in the morning? Because what we do, we run shifts. We want it to be very work-based learning, work-based simulated. So I think of them as sort of future employees, or they are adults in waiting. So we're working with our older students first thing in the morning. If we could get a student to come through, whether they drive or ride the bus, and we do offer transportation, bus transportation to and from, we run them in shifts. We run an early morning shift, which takes you basically from the beginning of your day to lunch. You don't have lunch at the Kevin Dukes building, but you're there for 2 blocks.
Okay.
So what you could really do is if you're a senior, you could take your last 2 classes in career tech and maybe an online class, or have your academics so that you're early out, which is part of our work-based learning co-op program, so that you are coming there for 2 classes and then you leave and go to work. That's why we really structured the older students there in the morning, because they do often have a vehicle, and if they have a job, they can leave straight from there to go to work. But they could also go back to their school and take an English or a social studies class that they need to graduate. We have a lot of students that do work-based learning, though. The other thing is, if they're taking dual enrollment, they may not even have another academic. They may have already gotten those out of their way. I know we're doing a lot with option B diplomas now, so you're going to see probably a lot more of this. But what we really want to do is have a kid come there in the 10th grade, which is afternoon, get all their career tech fundamentals down, and by the time they become an 11th and 12th grader, they come in the mornings. They take those last sequences to create their completer status, where they take the other program. If they're involved in anything like CTSOs, career tech student organizations like HOSA or Skills USA, they have their business meetings. They get ready for competitions, and either they go on to jobs in the afternoon, or they go back to school to be a football player, a basketball player, in the band, or cheerleader. They keep their identity, so they get to do both, best of both worlds. And we've really worked very hard in the last few years with our scheduling at the homeschool, our units. We've had to offer a variety of academic classes at the center to make the schedule work.
Yeah.
But we want to find any problem that's out there to keep the schedule from working and solve it.
Yeah.
And so it's just worked best for us to do those shifts, AM and PM, and the older students come in the morning, and then the afternoons, the younger students, which are 10th grade. And we had 1 9th grader last year, and that's going to be hard to put that back in the box, because our first 9th grader won state competition. He just won a national competition, part of the advanced manufacturing team. So if you have the right skill set at that age, the maturity level, if it's there, we probably will see an increase in 9th graders. But the other thing about the schedule and logistics is we wanted to do something that had traditionally happened. That was a career tech pathway for a long time. I think a lot of systems do that, where they run either 1, 2, or 3 shifts, and they bring those students there part of the day. What we wanted to do is how do we get those younger students in the building every day? And so our gifted program runs in the middle of the day. So what that means, if you're at, let's say you're at North Sun Mountain School and you're in the gifted program, 3rd through 6th grade, that same bus that ran the morning shift, one bus is going to run an additional shift out, pick up a group of students. We're going to keep those younger students there during the middle of the day. So we do provide lunch with our Hollywood school, which is an elementary feeder. And then we send them back in the afternoon when the PM drivers come.
Mm-hmm.
So we're now able to run multiple shifts. So based on age groups.
Really 2 and 3 shifts, and there's a middle overlapping shift.
That's right.
A lot of manufacturing does that too.
Mm-hmm.
If they're super heavy, so there's continuity among the shifts,
Right.
especially if they're making the same thing.
What does that for your early morning shift, riding a bus versus can they drive? What does that instructional time look like?
So they're getting
off of
2
how they're getting
credits. Our one-way miss, I guess you would say, is what they're missing out of seat time of the class. In the morning, it's about 30 minutes, 35, which would be a lot of times breakfast time at the school,
Right.
or going to the locker, getting ready, calling roll. So they're really not missing anything academically there as far as a credit. And then we have what's known as sort of the middle block in our school. And that was the other thing. We had to make sure every high school was on the same bell schedule,
Mm-hmm.
close as possible. Well, we've got some schools that have some variation. We've got a lot of K-12 schools out of my 6 high schools.
Yeah.
5 of those 6 are unit schools. K-12, we run the gamut as far as pre-K through 12th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So when you make one shift, you're not having to coordinate that with a lot of feeders. So it gives us a lot of uniformity when we make a shift. And so what we were able to do is just make sure they weren't missing anything in the middle, which is usually lunch. So they're getting an abbreviated lunch period possibly, or they're coming in for a non-credit bearing course in the middle of the day.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. I remember when Chris Kennedy was on, with all the different schools feeding into where he was, having to figure out everybody's schedule. But you're saying that all the schools kind of fit what y'all are doing, and then it spreads out to them. That's good.
I mean, when the focus became, when we made this our focus, it became our mission. It was a school shift. It was a school mindset shift from the leadership down, from the superintendent, the board. The support was behind Career Tech to make it work, and it made us all better. It wasn't this thing that, we haven't suffered. We won basketball 2A state championship in basketball boys and girls last year. So, I mean, we're a small school system as far as we have 1, 2, and now we have a 3A school, but we didn't rob anybody to do this. We made it to where it worked for everyone. The resources were there and the support was there for, like I said, for pre-K through 12th grade, whether they're there for STEM, music, or art. We brought art into the school system more than it's ever been. We've had 3 years where we've produced plays in the spring that's had a student from every school. We've got 2 band instructors that rotate through the building, so we offer music. Our STEM coordinators, I mean, we have STEM camp going on this week there. So everything is part of this, and it's not just the Career Tech side, it's everything education and through the building and logistics of how you move all those parts around.
Yeah, that's extremely inspiring, just thinking about everybody wins. Every student wins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to put on my leadership hat here and say, okay, when you first rolled that plan out, that was not popular with everybody. And I'm assuming, been in a couple of places where you talk about shifts and schedules and programming and whatnot. What did you have to do at the local level at each school site to win their hearts and minds to this vision?
I think the students did it because they saw the success. They saw that all those things that had kept us from being able to do things in the past were excuses. When you get rid of an excuse, it's easier to get rid of the second excuse. So we really just started knocking barriers down. And I really give a lot of credit to the team of the leadership team and the folks that were at the central office making some of the decisions. But this wasn't something that was hidden or packaged and then rolled out. I think there was a lot of input from the beginning with our principals, our 6 high school principals and counselors played a big part in making the schedules and making things work. And I'm going to be honest, there were days that we did something that didn't work properly and we had to punt. It was, the logistics is very hard to work out. And we may have left, we didn't have a group back in time for lunch, so we had to modify it, or, we forgot to go to the feeder pattern and get that group of students. So, I mean, there were days where you were like, is this going to work? But when you have a collective mindset and the power in the room was so large to make big time decisions and was able to work things out. But it was a lot of collaboration, a lot of teamwork, and and we built off the success that we were having when you'd see a kid that was, the quarterback on Friday night, but they were also the best welder that was in the state of Alabama and was getting all these awards, or you saw a kid get a great job making a lot of money per hour without having to even go to college. That was just, that was what everybody's in the game for, and that's what you want to see is student success. So we just built off of that.
Yeah, student success in multiple fronts. Academic, athletic, whatever.
And there has been a lot of buy-in from industry, and we've had a lot of industry support, and seeing that, we've had a lot of positive PR because we've been able to do some things that's drawn some attention. And it wasn't historically where people were coming to visit Jackson County schools. And now you have the name Kevin Dukes that is resonating all the way to the coast. And when you have someone in Baldwin County say, I've never met this man, but he's the reason we're doing what we're doing, it's lasting positive feelings. And I think it's a pride thing that the folks of Jackson County, the school system, we know we've got a good product, and we've been producing kids for generations. And so, when you have a kid that graduates from Jackson County schools, hopefully when they go to industry, they want to say that I was part of that program. And so that's why we're in the job. It's meaningful.
Long before I had this job, I worked at Calhoun, and I managed our line worker program, pre-apprentice line worker. And I would make a trip over to Jackson County schools, and there were several teachers that would invite me, career tech counselors, coaches.
Yes.
And man, I'd get over there and I'd talk to those kids, and they were so impressive. Literally shirts tucked in, boots tied tight.
Yep.
That's an Adam Sandler song from Billy Madison. Anyway, but I would go over there and meet these incredible kids, and then they'd show up for line worker school and get after it, man.
Yep.
Get after it, and then go on, and I can't track them possibly, but they just incredible wins and successes. So then watching the Kevin Dukes Center come about, I was not surprised that it was a win at all. So it's really good. Let's shift gears a little bit while let's focus on the CTE part of it. You mentioned briefly what all is in there, but give us just a quick snapshot of all the different trades and skills that are taught in that building.
So that was a question from the beginning. Are y'all just building a building for the same things you've got? And I answered that question this way. The programs we had, for the most part, there's been a few changes, but they were fundamentally sound programs. You just needed a modern equipment or a larger facility. Welding is welding is welding. Electrical is a welding technology. Manufacturing, nursing. Those are the fundamental programs that we had. Those are popular programs. We've maintained all those programs. We brought them over. We've added, I can go down the halls the best way I can do it.
Yeah, do it. Yeah.
So, health science is on the second floor up there. It's basically our hospital. We've got 3 instructors for that program. We've had 2 going into the building, but the program's been such a success. And if you've been in the lab, my daughter's at Alabama, and the lab, I think, is probably far exceeds most colleges and universities as far as the equipment and technology that's in the medical professions field. So we've got healthcare medical professions. We also offer CAD computer-aided design, which is also additive manufacturing. So it's on the second floor, and it looks down over 2 shops. And what I call it, when I was in high school and going on to the community college level, everybody said, if you were going to go to college and you want to make a lot of money, go into engineering. Well, what was engineering? I didn't really have an idea of what that entailed, but I think when you put these clusters together right here, when you have the design feature upstairs, and it's looking over the Haas manufacturing, the advanced manufacturing lab, and then our 32 booth welding shop below that. Those 3 shops is the engineering process from design to production. So those shops were always with us. Those were not programs we added. They were always there. And then keep on going down the hall. We've had some great partnerships with Northeast Community College, and we've been able to add cybersecurity. So that is a dual enrollment class that is taught through Northeast Community College. It's upstairs, and cosmetology. So we've got cosmetology on the second floor. And then one of the newest programs we've added is teacher education. And teacher education is also taught through the dual enrollment pathway through Northeast Community College to lead you on to Athens State University for a degree in elementary education. So we're trying to grow our own. So that's our second floor career tech classes. And on the bottom, we've got this long hall, and we've got 4 big bay areas 4 on each side, and on the front is what I call architecture and construction. So you go from framing on one end of the building, where we actually can frame a tiny home and pull it out the side and have all the crafts working on it. So we go up the hall, you have building construction, you have HVAC, you have masonry, and then electrical on the, I guess that would be the north end of the building. And then on the south end, you have the advanced manufacturing, the welding, fire science. So we've added fire science through partnership with the Scottsboro City, the Mayor McCamey, and the fire chief, Chief Lee. We've added fire science, and hopefully we can continue to grow that program. And then we have automotive diesel mechanics on the bottom. And then we have culinary. So the building was built with a culinary. We didn't have culinary at the time. We knew we weren't going to be a full campus. So we didn't have a gymnasium and we didn't have a lunchroom, but we needed a culinary department.
Mm-hmm.
So we added culinary from the design features from the start. So those are all inside the building.
When culinary, they do a great job. Seems like every event y'all have there, they're providing the food, and it's always
Absolutely
great.
So those kids are getting a lot of experience on hosting events, and most of them have been job placed in either the restaurant or the tourism industry. We want the hospitality and tourism aspect to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really appreciate having culinary inside the building. So
I bet, yeah.
And if you think about it, Google is in Jackson County, and I've had the privilege to visit there recently. They have a cafeteria on site, world-class chefs, because those employees, it's a campus is what they call that.
Yeah.
So this is a modern manufacturing or modern facility for employees. So it's going to pattern what they would see if they go out and get a job with Google. So
do you think that was that by design, or that just happened to work out when Google came?
I think that just worked out by design. I mean,
It's smart.
you just had to have somewhere for food to be either brought in we knew we were going to host events.
Mm-hmm.
So catering, but it just became one of those things. So not only can we cater, we can do it from scratch.
Yeah. Well, that run is walking down that hallway, that both top and bottom floor. But the last time I was over there, I walked down the downstairs past the architecture and construction,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, what they're doing surpasses a lot of colleges, community college. And I'll say that maybe a little bit of a call out competition to our community colleges, and they're all working really hard to upscale and meet the demand. But like what y'all are doing right there, a kid can come out, they can frame, they can wire, they could put it on blocks.
It's a multi-crafting wing there. There's a lot of interdiscipline area outside, and all those shops connect. So we didn't go with the chain link fence divide it. We actually have masonry walls that divide it, but there's a common door in the middle, sort of corridor, so that those kids can get those interdiscipline skills, and the teachers can work together. We've really had a lot of success with Skills USA competitions where you're doing those small craft teams.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just been one of those things where the kids have really got outside their area. I think that was one of those hampering moments, because just like when you're 15, 16-year-old and they tell you, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? If you don't pick the right one, you feel like you're stuck.
Yeah.
But you get a little bit of taste of each one of them, and you say, oh, there's a lot bigger part of this than just me and this one craft. And I think it's just like, you're collecting baseball cards now when you're getting these credentials.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting your best skill set in this. You're learning that skill set so that you become a Swiss Army knife, if you will, of interdisciplinary crafts.
Yeah. Do y'all still auction off that tiny home?
We try to do that as often as possible. We have limited a lot of the live work that we've done. You'd be amazed at the amount of live work that was being done by some of these students and these teachers. We get asked to do several projects for companies, and if you take on too much, you make people you get some disappointed faces when you're not able to make timelines. So we try to produce. I know they've done these what they call like the small library boxes. That's community library boxes, where it's a give and take.
Mm-hmm.
We've done some of those. They've done some dog houses for the county park. So there's projects that we do every year.
And one of the few times we've been over to tour, but in the masonry department at that time, I think it was the only machine in the United States that could.
The Italian 3D concrete printer.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We've yet to learn none of us speak Italian, and we haven't got that thing fully going yet. We're waiting on. That was one of those, when you're moving in the building, and that was another thing I want to mention earlier. We didn't have to bring all the equipment from scratch. We had a lot of this equipment, so it allowed us to have 1 or 2 pieces of equipment for each shop that was brand new, state of the art, cutting edge. And so that was the masonry item. And so when you're moving in the building and everything's new, and then you have this crew of people here for like 5 days, they really didn't get the time and attention they deserved to really go over how we were to utilize that. But yes, we do have an Italian 3D printer.
Well, listen, we've got an Italian speaker on staff, Rosie. She could probably come over one day and
ask her if she's ever used a wasp. I think that's the name of it.
Probably not, but I will ask her because,
the slurry looks like something you would get out of at Wendy's, Frosty. It just it's a really cool machine.
It just
consistent
runs around and prints on top. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Very good. So let's take that CTE conversation and talk about what your schools have done with the Skills for Success program. We've been very successful and very blessed for it to take off with industry. We have some industry partners that put their interns through our courses, or they put their new hires through, or hire from our course, and those are adults. And then when we started the Career Readiness Division, that really came out of like just a random, like I got frustrated because the State Department of Education wasn't answering our emails or our requests. And so I just called. I'm like, hey, we want to have a meeting about this. And they were like, okay, calm down. So we did. And then it just took off, man. It went kinetic. We transitioned Matt to that role, and now he's tripled his team there for 3 of them total. But it sounds good. It tripled your team.
Right? 300% increase.
300% increase. And that has just gone insane to the point where we were almost problematic because of the popularity, because of the quality of the credential the kids are getting with that CRI.
Sure.
And not every school has a Kevin Dukes Center.
Sure.
Not every school system. And so for those who don't, man, it's been a really game changer. I could say there are some places like yours that probably could get by without us, right? But you guys incorporate us. And one of the biggest ways y'all do that is with the heavy equipment training and with Lambert construction.
Not every system has a Cody Lambert.
No. And I've had circled in the back of my head for this show is to have him on.
Yes.
But to get him over here is probably a fool's errand because he's working and making money and making change.
If you're willing to get in a helicopter with him and fly to work when he goes from site to site, you could do the show from the air. I don't know if you've done that before, but Matt, would it be cool to do this?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
We will find a way. I'll get some suction cups and iPhone mounts, and we got some little microphones.
So the day that he bought the helicopter, I don't know how many helicopters he has, but the day that he bought a helicopter, I guess it was the first one, Drew McNutt, who is the career tech director now that works with me, he called me, and I was about 10 minutes away from the site, and he said, "You want to go flying in a helicopter?" I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, "Sure." And so he said, "Well, it's landing here in about 10 minutes. Can you be here?" And I said, "Sure." I didn't ask a lot of questions. I just gave a lot of sures. And the next thing I knew, I was in the air in a helicopter headed to across the Tennessee River up Sand Mountain with Cody Lambert, who I thought was flying the helicopter because he has got his pilot's license, but he was buying the helicopter. And so the salesman was like 19 years old that was selling him the helicopter. And we're flying across the Tennessee River, but it was really cool. So I have flown with Cody, and it would be a really neat show idea, I think, if you can make that happen.
Well, we're going to circle that in. There was a time in my life, my life goal really was to be a helicopter pilot. And I joke every time my wife's like, "Oh, I got you a surprise." I'm like, "Oh, is it a black helicopter?" It never is.
This is black. It flies by my office every day.
You're messing with my heart. Funny aside, I met a guy at church, and he was like, "Hey, what are you doing this afternoon?" I'm like, "Nothing." He's like, "Come down to the airport. I'll show you my airplanes." So I get there, 30 minutes later, we're in the air in a 1960s Serbian Utva. Like, this was like one of those reconnaissance planes with a massive engine that basically shuts off and dives down, does something, and bounces and goes back up. That's what. So I'm all in on some random flying. But he's been since the beginning. Cody Lambert has been very supportive of Skills for Success, and I think some of the things he adds to the program, the tribal knowledge that he puts into it is really cool. So for all that, what is it like to have such really quality invested industry partners taking your programs to
you can't put a financial price tag on that because I'll tell you this, the reason that it's such a dear thing for Cody is he's part of the Jackson County school system. He was a student at Flat Rock. He grew up there, and he never left where he came from, and he's only built, and he continues to grow. And he's located probably within 2 miles of our facility, so he goes by the facility all the time. He's got buy-in from not only being an alumni of our school system and seeing what a product of a Jackson County school and a career tech field can do for you, but he's also been part of this building package. I think his father was the original excavator of the property when it was built as an industrial park. And then he was the guy that got the bid when we did the groundwork for the Kevin Dix building. So he knows where everything's located.
Yeah.
And it's cool because he has now grown so fast and exponentially that I think it's really brilliant on his part. And we've got other partners like Mark Peppers at Wenzel Metal Spinning they've really put the time and effort. They've put their money where their mouth is, and they put the time and the effort into getting in the building often, learning the kids by name, doing these things like Skills for Success, where, he's got kids out there that is showing him like how what their skill sets are through this 2 or 3 week period or 4 days or however many days he's with them at that time, because he's not just coming once and he's never going to be seen again. That he's going to do this every time we ask him to do Skills for Success, or if we have a CEO Expo or anything that we have business and industry partners. And what he's doing is cherry picking the best and the brightest kids.
Sure.
I mean, you give $100 to the kid that, that won your competition on the hand-eye coordination during this class or this CEO Expo, gets a lot of attention because that kid, he's the best driver out of his class.
Yeah.
But it also, you start putting swag on that kid as far as putting a name company in Jackson County. That kid says, when I get old enough, I want to work for that company.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knows what he's looking for, the skills that he's looking for. He's helping train a whole generation of workers and future employees, but he's also there recruiting and having those conversations. Just like, we give a lot of emphasis now to college sports and recruiting and NIL. Well, this is that pathway for workforce.
Yep.
They're getting out there. They're putting their logos out there. They want to be seen in the building. We've got naming rights sponsorships. We've got those on the interior and exterior of our building.
Yeah.
And so we want kids to wear that hat. This is the company I'm going to work for when I graduate. And we do those signing days at the end of the year. It's really cool to have a signing day where you have kids going to Alabama or Auburn or somewhere to play an athletic sport. But it's also really neat to have a signing day where a kid is signing and they're getting the apparel and their logo for the company they're going to work for. And that doesn't say that they don't or they haven't already went to college, because most of these kids have had plenty of dual enrollment hours.
Mm-hmm.
They've probably either worked toward an associate's degree already, or they're really close to completing one, or they may get paid by the employer to go back to school to finish that 4-year degree.
That's clutch. And I think those signing days are just the biggest deal. We're working with Wiregrass Construction right now. Michael Breland is the new statewide coordinator, talent, HR, whatever he is. And he wants to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to be in every, he said, now, I don't know if it's attainable, every K-12 lab that we have, he wants to be at. Well, come on, bud. That's a lot of, he needs a helicopter.
Needs a helicopter, yep.
But he's like, what I want though is I want to be at those signing days. I want to put it on social media and let these kids see other kids wearing Wiregrass.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got a job. Here's my benefits package.
Right.
This is my signing bonus. And so I think that is the wave of, that's been around. It's so good. But I think that's the way for the next 4 or 5 years to really get kids moving and to get the industry involved, to know they can cherry pick.
And these aren't small companies by the amount of money they generate in a year and their revenues, but we've got like I said, Cody Lambert's construction company, Wenzel Metal Spinning, but we've also got larger partners than that. Boeing. Mm-hmm. You think about Boeing as being a worldwide company. Boeing's name is going to be on our building because of the amount of money that they're providing us for STEM and middle school, even outreach. Mm-hmm. We've got a STEM camp for them going on this week, where the money that they provided through us through grants has built a STEM lab for us that we wouldn't otherwise been able to finance. But also, they've actually showed several of our shops the equipment needed if these kids could learn these skills, wiring harness, they could go work for Boeing immediately out of high school. Yep. So we've got the partnerships at the ground level, if you will, from those people that have grown up and live in our community. Because my ultimate dream as a father of 2 daughters, I want my kids and your kids and anybody that grew up in our area to not have to be like my generation and move 45 or 2 hours away. And then when they do that for work, they often do that for a living, and then our school system. So you see a generational shift of kids that's moved out. So to keep Jackson County growing, I think we have to have the employers here, and we also have to have those the skilled labor force. And I think that's what we're doing. We're providing that skilled labor force for a worldwide company like Boeing, or a small company that started in Jackson County.
And that's a move to get those kids to come back home. Huntsville, Alabama in general, economic development, and Decatur, Morgan County, Coleman County, they're all working through that. Because we're all producing some really good kids.
Sure.
Bring them on home. Let them win, let them be successful here. So that's really cool, man. I get excited every time I see something on LinkedIn about Kevin Duke Center, what you're doing. It's always like, dang, they've outdone us again. As a college system, because you're just moving fast. But it's a beautiful thing to see. And Baldwin Prep School down in Baldwin County, obviously very good. RC3, some of the others, and now there's some super centers, super CTEs going in. There's one in Jefferson County, Chilton County with Jefferson State Community College right down the street. So it's really cool, and I'm glad all those things are happening. I tell my son all the time, but like, you don't have to go to 4 years, man. Like, with your smart brain, you can go over there and be a machinist.
What it's going to take is everybody doing what they're doing right now. I mean, it is competitive feeling. We'd like to think that we were the first to do this, but we're not the only.
Yeah.
We don't need to be the only. We need to push each other. Iron sharpens iron, and we need to always be pushing for the next best thing. Because if we generated every student that we could for even healthcare, we've got a healthcare worker shortage. We got a welding, there's a shortage of welders out there. So we've got generational decades of makeup to do, I guess you could say, to get kids on the right pathway for a successful career. Very high wage career, some of these, right out of high school with no debt. And it's awesome. But if a kid decides they want to go to get their degree as an engineer, it's still going to have to take some of these skills to be a really good engineer that you're going to learn for free when you're in the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. I mean, like I said before, it's like collecting baseball cards. If you're really good I know this kid that graduated top of his class this year. He's a national winner. I mean, he's got more medals, I think, than any kid that's ever went through Jackson County schools. And he wants to go to UAH and become an engineer. But it's all those things that he's learned as a 10th grader, as a 12th grader, that's going to make him a better employee. But it's also going to make him a much wiser engineer because he's seen it from the ground up.
Yeah, there was a K-12 high school that told us one time that they didn't need career tech in their school because all their kids go be doctors, lawyers, and engineers. Well, that's fine. That's an opinion. But like, I'm just thinking about those engineers, and it's like, man, if you've never pulled a Romex through a wall, or you've never tried to figure out where 16 inches on center, it really is, because it's not 16 inches from the edge of the board. So like, all those things, just that understanding that's almost intangible.
Well, we things are buzzwords, and this buzzword has sort of died down a little bit, but it's still highly important. But soft skills, soft skills are those skills that a whole generation of people has developed because of cell phones or lack of soft skills, cell phones and online learning, and thinking that, a book can teach them everything they need to learn, or a computer program. But it's that working in the shop. It's working with somebody from a different school every day. It's being on time. It's being able to stay off your phone. It's being able to pass a drug test, be able to compete, being able to drive your, the buddy that you've met from another school. How do y'all get in those local competitions? Everything that CTOs, career tech organizations, student organizations do, and all the CTE classes, that is just an element that's making a much more well-rounded student, I think. And it's not to say that these school systems that say, hey, no, we're going to shun off CTE. That's that stigma that a whole generation has sort of decided that didn't lead you in the best, that didn't lead you in the best outcome for a generation of students.
And to your point a minute ago, I had a recent conversation at a conference. Independent school administrator stopped by, and I was asking, are you familiar with us and what we do? Yeah, but we're 100% 4-year.
Oh.
I said, oh, really? 100% 4-year completer? No, well, a lot of them will have to come back to y'all to get what they need. I was like, well, if you know that, why would you not promote that up front to allow that student to maybe go to work for the company, and that company's paying for that 100% 4-year that you're so proud of? Well, yeah, I really haven't thought about it that way. I was like, I think for your student body, you're like, it's great to offer that 4-year, but 4 years not for everybody. We're always going to need the doctors and lawyers and engineers, but there's a whole lot of other gaps that still need to be filled that a lot of those students would fall into.
Yeah, and I think they fall into those gaps because they're not engaged. One of the funniest trends I see on social media now is like some video saying, hey, for all you who did most of your work on a desk sitting in the hallway, How's your multi-billion-dollar business going? And that's really cool. I'm gonna ask this question. The answer is gonna be really good.
Mhm.
What has happened to the attendance rate and the discipline rate amongst Jackson County schools since you've had this center open?
So we got 100% graduation rate.
Winner.
And we try to pair that. We've got one, not every school does, but as far as we've got some of the highest graduation rates we've ever had with the career tech completers, and now adding the college and career readiness standards, the CCRs. You try to marry those up, and it should be 100% for both. We've done some really cool things as far as incentivizing the ninth graders to take the Work Keys exam. We've had a partnership with Impact Learning Center to give that Work Keys early in the ninth grade when they're not being given another standardized test, to give them an idea of what they're going to line up and try to get a credential early in their career. Attendance we've got good attendance anyway. I mean, our attendance was never really bad. We were one of the first schools to come out of the lull, if you will, of let's just everybody stay home and do virtual.
Yeah.
We were trying to be in person from the earliest point, and I think that's historically, we've got a lot of working families who don't have daycare.
Nope.
There's not a lot of places where a kid can go spend their day if we're not having school. And so we've got the traditional, we've got doctor's appointments and dentist visits and things like that. And you've got some chronic absentee cases, but if you've got a really good attendance agent like we do, Mr. Roden, who's following those up, we're going to have those kids back in school, or they're going to be about their merry way in a legal process. But what's really been
About their merry way.
Yeah,
That's funny.
but what the discipline is, the normal things, and I think the cell phone apes, those are going to be, if you're in any job or any school system, or even at the college or the university level, you're going to have those minor things. But it's been really good to see those kids. We do what's in the fall, we'll do colors, or it's usually like wear green for Skyline, or blue for North San, or red for Pisgah. It's a lot of a lot of collaboration among schools where those kids are really respectful of each other.
Yeah.
On Friday nights or on Tuesday during basketball season, they're very competitive.
But after it,
But it's very interesting to see all these kids, because my generation, we didn't meet a lot of kids outside of Bryant, North San until we got to Northeast or a job. They've seen each other throughout the week. They are friends on the weekend. Social media, they're following each other. So it's a bigger family. It feels like a much bigger school when you're there. It's really cool to walk the halls though, and know that you can't always tell where the kid's from, because they've got a lot more in common than they have that separates.
that's beautiful. I'm not looking for a job, but if I was, I'd be like, hey, can I come work over there?
Yeah,
I
we'll
think
take you.
I think that'd be a really fun environment. It's just, I don't know, man. It's what we're doing on a statewide level, right there. So it's really good. Final thoughts. What would you want somebody to take away from this conversation?
Don't think that it's a world of silos. Get out of the silo, be adaptive, as I've used before. If you're a school that really does AP very well, not everybody's going to do AP very well. We try to be all things to everybody, and so we're trying to offer something for every kid. And I think the best way you can do that is offer everything that you can possibly offer. Now, we're not going to put a welding program in every school, but what we can do at the center in the middle here in Hollywood, and it happens to be geographically the center of our county, we're going to try to put the best thing that we possibly can out there for all students. And we're going to have the facility that all of our kids can come through. And we're going to try to make sure that if we don't have something that the industry is asking us to have, whether it's a piece of equipment or a program or an instructor, that we're able to find ways to break those silos, get all those barriers. A lot of those excuses I've talked before can be broken down if you just put a little bit of effort. A lot of it's, funding is a big thing, and I'm not going to pretend that, that money's just probably the biggest obstacle that people overcome for anything. But you can look for grants. You can look at your budget. You can look at business and industry partnerships. And I think, you didn't ask me where I think this was going to go, but I think I'll interject it here.
Yeah.
If the state really is in love with career tech, and they're really wanting to make the big step forward to put Alabama on the map nationally, I think the next part of our equation, whether it's the community college aspect or the K-12 aspect, we've got great facilities now, and we're going to have good facilities eventually at a lot more places. The equipment is going to fill those spaces. It's the professional that you're pulling out of industry, or you're asking someone to become a teacher in the third grade. If we're really going to be the step forward for workforce development, and education is the foundation of workforce development, we've got to pay a third grade teacher what they're really worth. We've got to have a really good salary package. We've also got to have the wages, and we've got to have the benefit package that's going to get your welder that could be making triple the salary of the electrician or the nurse, and have them to go outside and say, hey, look, I'm going to go to that K-12 or that community college, and I'm going to teach a whole generation of these folks to be just like me. And I can't do it just because I'm called to do that, or that's something that I've retired and now I'm going to go back in the later part of my years. We need to have the funding available to pay them industry related wages. And I think that's the future. And I think that's where that's the next big hurdle that we've got to overcome as a state.
I think if Alabama did that, if any state did it, and teachers flocked there, and there was a selective process, because if you increase the wages, you got to be really choosy who you hire. But I think that would absolutely change it, because a lot of times as a principal, you hire who applies, and if that crop is not great, then they're just not great, and you do the best you can with what you have.
Yeah, the data's there. There's enough standardized testing for an elementary teacher or a high school teacher, but I'm saying even in the career tech world, there's a matrix of things you can measure, whether it's success at a Skills USA competition or the number of positive placements that they're putting into the industry, feedback from your business and industry partners. But I think the revenue source has to be those business and industries that is that's out there calling for employees now. They're saying we've got a shortage. Step up to the plate and incentivize the school system with a stipend or a supplement to give an instructor so that we can retain them. We don't need to have every year a new instructor because that person said, I'll do it for a year, but I've got to go back to industry next year. We've got to have somebody that's coming in there that's got the skill set to do it, the right person that's teaching that generation of students. It's just like you would want the best dentist. When you go sit in the chair, you'd want the best eye doctor. Well, you probably need the best teacher that's going to be teaching a whole generation of welding students or advanced manufacturing students.
Yeah.
You would pay much bigger dividends in the future than people are a little short-sighted right now in the present.
I agree. Always been a problem. I'm not sure why we all stuck around education, but
you got vested in, and you were tier 1.
I did. I was tier 1, got in, couldn't get out. They got me. But it's been good. So good. Well, man, I appreciate your insight today. Love the story, and can't wait to see what we watch. Can't wait to see what you guys do next and how we can support that.
Thanks for the invite. I was just happened upon you, and then the invite came. So I appreciate the opportunity to come out here and tell our story. I think that if you invited me again, I'd come back tomorrow. So this has been an awesome experience.
Well, I think you, Matt Massey, over at the Cyber Technology Engineering Academy, y'all have two of the hottest things going, especially in North Alabama, probably the state too. So I think it's good to have a follow up on those things and see what's cooking, because it changes by semester.
Yes, it does.
Cool. Good deal. Well, Matt, wrap us up, man.
This is going to conclude another episode of Innovation Unplugged. Any of the skills for success topics that we talked about today are on any episode. If you'd like to dive deeper into that, you can visit our website at trainforalabama.com. That's trainforalabama.com. Again, this is going to conclude another episode of Innovation Unplugged. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow on all your social media platforms. Thank you.